Welcome back. Today on PFDAuto, we're finally getting some mounts built. I'm going to start with the transmission mount. Just seems like it's the right thing to do. Not sure why, but that's what we're going to start with. So stay tuned, and I'll show you what we come up with. So now that we have the added clearance from channeling cross member, we need to make sure that our left and right for the transmission is correct, and our height versus the drive shaft. So while I like where this is sitting, this might not be the final location for the engine. I've got it up to where there's some gap underneath this side. The other side with that angle, there's a ton of gap over here. We've got more clearance from the hood to the engine. But today what we're going to work on is dialing in the transmission. So let's get underneath the car and take a look at what we have going on down there. Now we're under the car. You can kind of see what I'm working with. And it seems like this is pretty much like everything else with a build like this. It's one step forward, two steps back. Now, I've been trying to avoid cutting this tunnel. I have a shift selector that would work with this setup if I cut a giant hole in it. And as a matter of fact, I just ordered a chassis mount shifter that should work way better. The thing is, see if I can get you up here. This hole here, that's where the shifter wants to sit to stay in the console. So what I need to do is I need to get a bar to go from there, line up with here, that's not going to hit, and make it to where I don't have to cut the tunnel. But if I take this and lift it up at all, there's not enough room there for the shifter. You can see I have a little bit of room, but not a whole lot. Plus, these ears stick off. They're going to wang around there at a really high rate of speed. So my whole shifter concept might be right out the window. Unless I can keep this just above, which might be what I have to do. Or I might have to come in here and pound this tunnel out, which I really wasn't interested in doing. The more I look at it, I don't know if there's another option. So we're not going to worry about that right now. We're going to worry about getting this transmission mounted. Then we're going to work around that, because if I waited for everything to be perfect, I wouldn't be building this car. You can see I've got some factory holes here. There's even some with some bolts already. There's no thread in these ones, but it looks like this just kind of moves around. Might even be able to reuse this. Just kind of slide it forward. Should be really sweet. But that's where we're going to build our mounts off of. So this isn't as straightforward as just building a bar across the back to hold the transmission up. There's some things we really need to consider. Some things that I didn't even really consider when I started putting this whole thing together. Number one, the sump. Oil needs to drain from the back to the front into the sump. That's not extremely important as long as I have it close. There's going to be a lot of oil in here. It's going to want to find its way down to here. But if I put it at too far of an angle back, it's going to load up in the back. Not all of it's going to fall into here. And under some extreme conditions, I could run into some oil starvation. I really, really don't want that to happen. The other things we need to consider, the drive shaft angle. The drive shaft and the output shaft need to line up and be dialed in to where there's no odd movement. So the two plates need to be parallel. The other thing we have to consider is our steering. So you can see I've got enough clearance right now, but I don't have that arm all the way on the power steering. So I think I'm going to start with that just to make sure the clearance of the steering linkage isn't an issue. Once that's done, I think I'm going to figure out how high I can get the back to make sure that the oil drains forward. Once I've got that, I'll worry about our left to right, and then I'll work out how we're going to make the drive shaft meet the output shaft. I also have to worry about the shifter linkage. Was never a part of this car, but I can do some massaging or some cutting or some whatever I need to do to make that work. But this is, again, a little out of my depth. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to be doing, so there's definitely going to be some step forward, step back. So overall, I hope by the end of this video, I have a clearer understanding of how all of this needs to work together. I attached my arm back to the power steering box, and then I realized a couple of things. Number one, I'm really glad I shaved that little piece off, because this is full lock. But I also noticed that the steering linkage moves up and down as I shift from left to right. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to show you this, but we'll give it a shot here. So if you can kind of see in there where the steering linkage moves, lots and lots of room, and then no room. That's about as low as I can have everything and still have the steering not hit the oil pan. And that's still a little close for my comfort, but I think we're going to have to deal with that. So we really need this engine in here as low as possible. And that still makes it to where we're in here with just a little bit of gap on this side, which isn't too bad. But I do have the engine tilted back some at this point. And I did that to add that clearance. Now the question is it tilted back too far? The other thing I need to focus on is getting this centered in the engine bay. We definitely don't want it too far left or right. So I'm going to keep messing with this and show you the other things I find. Hopefully there's not a lot more, and we can just get this mount started to get built. But we definitely need to account for all of these things before we just start building mounts, or we're going to have to do it all over again. Not a lot of progress so far today. I have figured out I've got the engine left to right. I've got it where I need front to back. I've got the transmission in the middle of the tunnel. Still not quite sure how I'm going to find the angle of the drive shaft. I did find I need a new support shaft bearing, the center support shaft bearing. It is completely toast. And that's throwing my measurement off also. But I've got the transmission up. I don't know if you can see, but I've got that up as high as it's going to go. There's no more room in there for the transmission to come up. That gives me a little angle on the engine this way. But looking at the sump, it's still got an angle down. So I think that should be fine. So this is where the engine needs to be. It's where it needs to sit. I've got some blocks under here now because that jack's not great. This oil pan is level. And I think this is it. This is where it needs to sit. I can clear full lock. Fits from underneath. Fits left to right. Got the steering arm on there, just a temporary bolt in it, but all the steering works everything centered up, this is where it's going to be. That said, I still need to figure out the angle of the drive shaft. I'm not sure there's a whole lot I can do about it because this is where the engine needs to sit. I have a little bit of wiggle room, but not very much. So I think I'm just going to start building them out. Hope for the best on the drive shaft. I don't know. It seems like none of these mounts will work unless that transmission mount is dialed in. So I'm going to call up a couple buddies, some people that know a lot more about this than I do, some people who've already put this engine and transmission in this style of car. I'm going to ask them what they did, how it worked out for them, and then go from there. So tomorrow, hopefully, I can start bending some steel. After spending about 3 hours yesterday, staring at the engine, moving it around, come to the conclusion that I'm not going to worry about the drive shaft just right yet. I'm going to figure that out when I cross that bridge. I've got the engine and transmission set up pretty much where it needs to be. So everything else is just going to kind of have to fall into line with that. So today, we're in fab shop, better known as my side yard. And we're going to cut up some steel. That way we can get transmission mount put together. So I'm going to cut this piece out, start making some bends. All right, well, I got my piece of steel all cut up here, cleaned up, smoothed out so I don't cut myself. Went under the car, and I figured out I need about 2.5 inches on the center before I start making my bends. So this is my center mark. These are my cut marks. I'm going to make some cuts pretty far through this so I can bend it. And then I'll bend these up to meet the angle of the transmission mount on both sides. They're both a little different, so I can't just make one and replicate it. Once I'm done with that, and I figure out how long they need to be, then I'll make another cut, fold this down, and that's where it'll come and meet up with the piece that actually bolts into the car. I haven't decided yet, but I might make this 3 pieces just to make it easier. And also I'm going to have it finish welded off-site. It's not going to be bolted to anything. I want a little bit of wiggle room. That's also why I'm creating this bar that goes between the 2 mount points. That will be solid. That way, hopefully, if there's any shrinkage or movage, it's all going to still line up, bolt down. So all that said, we get to cutting. Well, I've been getting a whole bunch done. I've got the other piece in the car. It's actually connected to the mounts. Now what I'm working on, waiting for it to cool down, is how I'm going to actually connect it to the car. So this part is going to go on the existing frame rail. This part is going to fold up. That's what's going to connect to my crossbar. So I've got it chopped up, trying to bend it. Probably going to have to cut it a little bit more. But we're getting really close. Another tap. Now I've got 2. This one just needs to get bent. Obviously the opposite way of this one. Still pretty hot. Might take me a second. Oh, and I missed all of that. So I'm going to clean this off. I'm going to let it cool down. And we'll get it bent up. Well, this is what I've been working on all day. I've got my cross member plate cut, bent to shape, holes drilled. So the mounts fit through here, goes up onto the transmission. Then I've got these guys. This bottom piece bolts to the car, like so. This one bolts up on the other side. Really need to take the sharp edges off of that. There's a slight angle to the tunnel, and I've got that worked out like this. So once I get these cut down to size, this will be our transmission mount. This is what we're going to end up with. Of course, I need to drill some holes in these guys. This will be our mount. Then I just need to have the fab guys weld these bends shut here and here, here. And I should have a transmission mount. So I've got these marked up. I'm gonna see if I can cut through them before it starts raining on me. So the rain gave me a tiny bit more time. I decided I would get these finished up. They're chopped to the correct height. Everything's pretty much ready for welding. As soon as that's done, toss a little bit of paint on it, slap it in the car, transmission mount will be done. Well, there's a couple holes and things that need to be drilled, but you get the picture. The next episode of PFDAuto, we're going to be working on the engine mounts finally. I got some plates from FabBot. Should really help us out. Basically, all we have to do is figure out how we're going to go from the plate on the engine to the motor mount. So we'll get that done. We'll get this engine in there. We'll get this transmission mounted. We'll be well on our way to having a running 190 with a K-swap. I think I mentioned last time I have a ton of parts. Just waiting for it to be sitting there before it makes sense to put them on. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you have any questions, any comments, drop them down below. We'll see you next time on PFDAuto.